I come from a town in northwestern Saskatchewan with the worst crime rate in Western Canada, or at least it's the most concentrated. Running into skinheads or finding drug drops by accident are things you encounter in my town at a young age. By 12, you learn how to spot and intimidate a scout car. That's a car scouring for places to rob. And by 14, you've survived a jumping, a stabbing, a shooting, or in my case, several of each. There's a generally understood rule, which is, once the sun goes down, you don't leave your house unless you have a death wish. I'm saying all this so that you understand where I come from, and why when I'm on vacation, I try my best to turn off these parts of my brain. My dad's side of the family all reside in Calgary, and they have since 1948, so that's where we'd go for vacation. As I got older, my cousins who lived in Calgary told me more about all the gang wars that were going on there. They told me about the Asian gangs and the Lebanese gangs fighting for power. They said that if you entered the wrong bar, you'd be asked to pay the gang's tribute to drink there. My female cousin once described a graduation party that one of her friends was having. It never crossed her mind to invite this one kid, who apparently had ties to a gang. It wasn't malice, it just wasn't something that crossed their mind. This kid thought that he was being dishonored, and this part of the story is hers, not mine. The kid showed up with 4 other guys and walked up to the guy throwing the party. They opened his stomach up with a knife right in front of everyone, and then everyone else ran. I've always been an introvert. In my hometown, I was known as a hipster dork. Anywhere outside my hometown, people saw me as a thug. Some people think from my appearance that I'm part of the Turkish mob, but I'm a real softie, introverted, never explored nightlife, and I've never tried to prove that I'm tough. I was always in bed early too. This one night, I was staying in Calgary. My grandparents had a condo in the southwest part of the town. My dad and I were down for Christmas and staying in a communal bedroom on the ground floor, right behind the entrance to the building. Night 2 of our stay, I was awoken by a full bladder. The lights in the bathroom were halogen, and they were so bright that they turned my mind on. It was 2 a.m. and I was hopelessly awake. The walls of this place were thin and cheap. You could hear water moving through the pipes and everything in the front entrance. At around 3 in the morning, I heard running outside. I cautiously opened the blinds to the balcony to see a disheveled woman. I can't remember her ethnicity, though I think she may have been Métis. She had messy makeup and a baby in her arms. She darted to the front door and started pressing every button. One by one, I heard most people in the building slowly waking up and asking what was happening. The only thing this woman could muster was help, and they're coming. Finally, after 3 or so minutes, there was a long buzz and a click, followed by a scuffling. I heard the ping of the elevator arriving, and a sound that I assumed was her diving shoulder first into the building. A couple seconds passed, then I heard it. A car screeching to a halt. I opened the curtains enough to see one of those cars. It looked like one of the old Smokey and the Bandit cars, except the discount version. The ones that only drug dealers and teenagers drive. This car was parked at the front doors. Skid marks from the tires were etched into the pavement. There were 4 men entering the building. 2 of the men wore leather jackets, the other 2 wore denim ones. Through the extremely thin walls, I could hear them saying,
"Did she come in here? I don't know. What do you want to do?"
I heard a palm slam against a metal surface. Then I heard the doors to the complex violently rocking back and forth with great force. Then after a minute, they stopped. The leader muttered,
"She's out anyway. We'll find her. She can't keep cooped up in there forever."
Then they exited calmly, and the car sped off. I told the whole thing to my dad when he woke up. He told me that I was too used to my hometown and that I was imagining things. I let it go and went upstairs. As we were sitting in my grandparents' large dining room awaiting breakfast, my grandma perked up and asked, "Do either of you know what all that commotion was last night?" I perked up and told her what I'd seen, and asked if anyone else had seen it. They said one of the people on the 3rd floor saw someone come in very late at night, but no one was there in the morning. After that, my dad believed me. My dad has always been one of those people who would rather stare evil in the eyes and deny its existence, whereas I'm quite the opposite. He's an idealist, I'm a realist. So needless to say, discussing this wouldn't be his first idea of something to do. This was my first and only experience with Calgary's deep underbelly. My cousin talks my ear off anytime I come down about more gang violence, but I never know if it's true or not. She's told the backyard party story to me 4 times, so I'm pretty sure it's true. I also know that my experience is true. True as the day is long. This all happened the day after I took my final exam at community college. I was really nervous that I was going to fail this one class and not be able to receive my AA degree. Later in the day, I was out at the pool of my apartment complex with some of my friends and roommates. I checked my phone and saw that I passed the class. I got really excited, and I told everyone that we were celebrating because I was the last one to have a final. It was 3 days before I got to graduate, so I decided that we should all have some fun before we went our separate ways. As it got later into the night, we decided not to go out and just to stay in. We invited a couple more people over and went on with the night. Around 2 in the morning, people started to leave and head to bed. The only ones left were me and my 2 roommates, both of the people that we were dating, and one other friend. We were still hanging out, and because our apartment was on the 1st floor and next to the pool, we decided to go night swimming. As soon as we were done with that, I was ready to just relax and be in for the night. My roommates and the other friend all left to go somewhere else for a little while, which was fine. Nothing out of the ordinary for me to be home alone. I got some food and went into my room until they got back. My room was all the way at the back of the apartment, furthest away from the front door and the patio door. My room was behind the kitchen, and you'd have to go through the whole place to get there. Our apartment was at the front of the complex, near the front gate, which at the time was left open because it was broken. I had never had an issue with that until this night. My room had one big window that you could easily see through when I didn't have the blinds shut. I had a closet with mirror doors, and if you looked through the window, you could see every part of my room. When I was waiting for my friends to get back, I fell asleep. The last time I looked at the clock, it was 3:30 in the morning. Also, my bedroom light was on when I went to sleep. The next time I woke up, it was around 5:30 in the morning, and there were flashes going off all around me. It was like there was a strobe light in my room. I woke up really confused and thought my friends had come back to mess with me. Once my eyes got more adjusted, I realized that in fact it was not my friends. It was a single man who was at least 6'1". He was wearing a green Nike hoodie with the hood on, and he was standing in the corner of my room by the closet, holding a phone, taking pictures of me. I had tiny shorts on, with one of my legs hanging out of the covers. I don't think he realized I'd woken up, and when reality sunk in, I said, "What the hell?" Instead of coming at me or running out of the room, the man put the phone down and walked out without saying a word. Not in a panic, he just walked out. Me being the genius that I was, I ran after him, yelling. I tried to follow him out of the apartment, but once I got to the front door, I didn't see him anywhere. I ran back inside and woke up all of my roommates and asked them if it was them messing with me. They said no, and then we called the police. I looked around my room and saw the only thing missing was my laptop, which was on my desk in the far corner of my room. The door to my room was closed, and outside in the kitchen on the counter, there were 3 other MacBook laptops, 2 wallets, and at least $300 in cash. But the only thing missing from the whole apartment was my laptop. Later on, I found out that the front door and the patio door were never locked when everyone got back, and the police couldn't find the guy or my computer. What made things worse was that the SIM disk from my camera was in the computer, so all my personal photos from that camera were now accessible to that guy. In the end, the guy was never found, and I never saw his face, which freaks me out to this day, and I hope I never come across him again. I never got my laptop back, and I never found my SIM disk to my camera. My best advice to anyone in a college town is to always lock your doors, because you never know who you could wake up to. This happened when I was 12 years old. I was alone in my room chatting with friends at 2 a.m. It was a few days before New Year's, so a lot of people were roaming the streets at night, going home from parties and such. My room had curtains, and if they weren't closed, you could see into my room. On this unfortunate night, I had forgotten to close my curtains. I was sitting on my bed, so any creep could come by and peek through my window and see me. I lived on the first floor of an apartment complex with my family in a quiet town in Finland. I was in the middle of a conversation with my best friend when I heard a slight knocking on my window. I ignored it, thinking that it was just the cold winter air messing with the window. A few seconds later, I heard the same knock again, but louder. That's when I made a big mistake. Me being the paranoid person that I am, I did not check what was happening at my window. Seconds later, someone started violently banging on it. I immediately moved to the corner of my room, because at that moment, I realized I had not closed my blinds. The banging got louder and louder. I thought my window was going to break. At that moment, I should have rushed into my parents' room, but I was frozen in fear. Soon enough, a man started yelling at my window, but it was pretty much inaudible. He was clearly drunk, I could tell by his voice. He suddenly shouted,
"Open the window."
At that moment, I was almost crying. But then, I heard my neighbor's dog barking. My neighbor always went on long walks at night with his dog, and thank God he came by right at that moment. My neighbor started yelling furiously, while his dog was still barking out of his mind. I heard them argue for a while, until eventually, it quieted down. I had to wait for about 15 minutes until I could check the window, and I have absolutely no idea what happened to that guy banging on my window. He just completely disappeared, and my neighbor never brought it up. At this moment you might be thinking it was a dream, but I swear it was not. I never told my parents, and they still have no idea what happened that night, and they probably never will. My husband and I used to live in an apartment. We're both guys, not relevant to the story, just adding a bit of color. I'm thoroughly convinced that the place was haunted. When you entered the apartment, you entered the living room/kitchen. Then there was a long hallway running past a bedroom and a bathroom. Then the master bedroom was at the end of the hall. It was an ordinary suburban apartment complex, and it was around 20 years old at the time. On multiple occasions when we were living there, we would hear footsteps coming down the hall from the bedroom. We would look and there would be no one there. We lived on the top floor, so there's no way there was an upstairs neighbor. That happened numerous times over the 5 years that we lived there. We would both hear it. He's a software engineer and a computer scientist, so he's in no way inclined to believe in the paranormal. But even he had to admit that it was odd. In the bedroom there was a walk-in closet. If the door was not completely shut and latched, I would wake up in the middle of the night with absolute night terrors. I would wake up literally screaming and thrashing. If the door was closed, nothing. I slept fine. Before and after my time in that apartment, I rarely had night terrors, and never that severe. There was one time when I was walking down the hall, and I entered the master bedroom. I hit a wall of what I can only describe as angry, hateful energy. It was noticeable enough that I stumbled backwards. I went back to the kitchen to get away from it. Weird stuff like that happened occasionally. I never saw anything, just sounds and sensations. I don't know what, if anything, happened in that apartment, but it centered on the master bedroom and the hallway. Nothing strange ever happened anywhere else in the apartment.